Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back. Today, we're going to be talking about traumatic encounters with unhealthy family members. Now, I love asking you guys to vote. And when I put either a poll or a question in the comment section, you guys are so awesome because what you do is you go to that area, you click on whatever link I provide or whatever poll, or you leave a comment. You guys are so awesome. Thank you. This is a topic that you guys have voted on. You want to hear about toxic family members and how to deal with them when you have to encounter them. So let's just go ahead and jump into this topic. There's quite a few things I want to touch on. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For all of you who are subscribed and participating, and for those who are new, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can stick around with us and be a part of our community. And let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, families, as well as adults. Let's jump in. Having encounters with family members can be really stressful, and I think there are a lot of people who feel, really overwhelmed when it comes to trying to manage a family. It's not easy to manage all the conflicting personalities, all the conflicting ideologies and theories and spirituality, and the list goes on, right? Everybody within a family unit operates individually. And that can be really difficult to navigate, especially if you're a multi-ethnic family or a multicultural family. That makes it even worse, My family is multi-ethnic. So, in addition to that, it's my mom, the way that she was brought up and the way that she brought me up and my brothers, and so all of those cultures kind of conflict, so when you're a multi-ethnic family and you've been exposed to a variety of cultures over time, that can change how you think, how you behave, how you function, not only culture, but class as well. So I'm sure you have certain family members who are like, we don't do things like that, and I'm sure you look at those family members and you're like, that's a little bit out of my zone of comfort, So all of those things can really make encounters with family members difficult. But what about when those encounters are traumatic? Now, a traumatic encounter could be anything from a fight to a stance of intimidation from multiple family members to rumors and triangulation, Toxic and unhealthy families can really cause long-lasting trauma. And if you're like me, and I've done this within my family as well, you really learn at a certain point that nothing I do is going to change how you see life, how you react, how you behave, and how you treat me. So in that sense, now I'm going to have to do the mature thing and step back and provide some distance. And that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. I'm going to give you a couple of signs that you are dealing with a very unhealthy family dynamic, and you might want to step back for your sanity. So the first thing that I usually see in families that I work with, I've seen it, all over the globe, really, doing counseling and consultations, is that you're going to have some kind of encounter with a dramatic family member, a family member who really soaks up the drama. This is the family member who spreads gossip, they triangulate, they create confusion, they gang up on certain individuals within the family. They have a self-righteous stance, they know how to spread rumors and gossip around in the family in a way that charges everybody's emotions. They love drama. This particular kind of individual thrives on drama. The drama really does push forward that person's true intent, okay? Which could be to get you back for something, to control you, to manipulate you, to hurt you, to get over on you, whatever the case. Their drama has a particular goal in mind, and it's usually to get over on you or to harm you in some fashion. Okay. I want you to also think, before I move on to the second thing, I also want you to think of this as, these personalities within my family, or this particular person, it could be one, they are basically, they should be categorized on what's called a personality disorder spectrum. Okay. So as I'm going through this video, I want you to think about the spectrum of personality disorders, and here they are right here so that you can see labels. All right. Personality disorder spectrum. All right, I want you to think of these characteristics on this spectrum as we go along. All right, the second thing is triangulation. So these particular family members really like to triangulate because this is where they gain their control. If they could look like the victim, if they can create somebody that wants to swoop in and rescue the whole situation, then you become the persecutor, the one who's angry, the one who's pointing fingers, the one who has the most problems. And all they need to do is sit back in the victim role and just watch it all happen. And so these particular family members may utilize triangulation as a tactic to not only manipulate, but to also gain the favor within the family. If they look like the victim, what's the point in them having to fight you? Because they're the victim, you're the problem. So all they have to do is sit back and watch the other family members come to their rescue. All right. So triangulation is another one. Another one is, the family member that shares all your personal details that you have given in confidence to them. The easy remedy for that is don't tell them anything that you don't want the whole family to know. There's a saying in my family that, we've had family members who are like an open refrigerator. They let everything out, they don't know how to put up that boundary or not tell somebody else's issues, So whatever you don't want your family to know, don't tell them. But this particular person really gets, a kick out of sharing personal details, and especially those personal details that you share in confidence. Again, it puts them in a position of power, a seat of power. So you want to watch for that. The next kind of family member is someone who has poor assertion of boundaries. They don't know how to be flexible in their boundaries at appropriate times. Either they're too rigid or they're too flexible. They don't know that there's gray here, that you need to be flexible depending on the person, the situation, the circumstance, whatever. They don't know how to do that. So what happens? They have a very poor assertion of boundaries. And without that proper boundary line, problems come up, misunderstandings come up, miscommunication comes up, blaming, assaults, the list goes on. All right. The next kind of family member that you're likely to see is a family member that I regard as someone who avoids conflict. So there's a term in family therapy known as conflict avoidance. And this is the particular individual who they know a conflict is here. They know there's an issue here. But are they going to deal with it head on? Probably not. So, they may even cause the conflict and they're just going to avoid the whole thing. All right. Family members like that can be really difficult because they can really create some really traumatic situations in your life. I once had someone consult with me from Japan, and, she was an international student. So she traveled all over the world. Spoke many languages, very talented, but, if you really know the Japan culture, they tend to have a really rigid system between parent and child. And unfortunately, in her situation, her parent would cause the conflict, would spread rumors, spread personal details all over the place. And then when this young lady would try to engage her mother in a conversation about the issue, then her mother would withdraw and avoid the conflict because, number one, she knew she was wrong. Number two, she was in a seat of position, a seat of power, I should say, being in that position where she could take that personal information and run with it, and then she can clamp down and not talk if she doesn't want to talk. That's power. That's a lot of power that you're just holding over somebody's head. And so because her personality leaned more towards the narcissistic, sociopathic part of the personality spectrum, she loved it. She loved it. And so you want to watch family members who are like that, and you want to find ways, which I'm going to talk about probably on Sunday, maybe sometime next week, how to deal with these particular personalities. But you want to find a way to get around that because you're never going to get over on them. You're never going to win. They love that power. That's what they drink. That's what they breathe for. They need that power. Unfortunately, they're power hungry. I hate to say it. The next thing you're likely to see is family and psychological bullying, and that can come in the form of manipulation and threats and, pathological lying. It could come in the form of assault. Even sexual abuse can be bullying to a certain extent. You kind of bully that person down into a position so that you can sexually abuse them. I think, you know, in addition to family and psychological bullying, we can also incorporate in this category emotional incest. And I talk a lot about that right up here in this video that I did, where, you know, there's no boundary line between parent and child. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be talking about that coming up in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for that video. But there's no proper boundary between the child and the parent. And what happens is enmeshment occurs. Emotional incest really does foster enmeshment. It fosters a parentified child. It fosters the wife they never had, the husband they never had, the moneymaker they never had, the caretaker. Emotional incest can be very, very traumatic. So I will be bringing that up in the next few days, but we can put that into this category as well. And last but not least is pathological lying. I talk a lot about it right up here in this video, and I also talk a lot about it right up here in this video, and here's some videos here as well where I talked about pathological lying. Go ahead and check them all out. You're going to see a pattern from this video to those videos, because again, we're looking at a personality disorder spectrum, and pathological liars are along that spectrum for sure. And if you have this in your family, they are likely to do some real damage. Not all pathological liars are the same. Thank you so much for being here with me today, guys, in this video. Please give it a thumbs up and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if this video was helpful to you. I will see you in the next couple of videos. We have a lot to talk about, and I think you'll like them. I'll see you soon. Bye.